Members, actually we've passed the scheduled time, and may I call the meeting to order. The administration has given us a paper. We've arranged for 2 sessions today. After the first lot, we will take a 10-minute break, and then at 10 minutes past 6, we will start our second slot. May I remind members that if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest to declare, please, in accordance with ROP number 83A, and disclose the nature of interest involved before you speak on that matter. And please note that the voting regulations in relation to items where you have direct pecuniary interest, and that is under ROP 84. The first item is FCR 2012-1354, Head 170, Social Welfare Department. For this item, we have the Secretary for Welfare and Labor, Mr. Matthew Zhang, and also Ms. Irene Young, Deputy Secretary for Labor and Welfare, Ms. Feng Pak Yan, Deputy Director of Social Welfare. A few minutes ago, we have a supplementary paper from the administration secretary. Can you please explain the paper to us? First, we apologize for being so late in giving you the paper. In fact, it's just a very simple paper. Members may record in FCR 2012-1354. There are 2 parts to the funding request. One is A and the other is B. A is about a total supplementary provision in under Head 170 Social Welfare Department for introducing the Old Age Living Allowance. But as we all know, the FC is still discussing this item. We intend to launch the allowance in March next year. However, because we have had some slippage in our discussion, and as a result, we do not need a supplementary provision for this fiscal year, so it's just a technical amendment. Members need not worry. Assuming that we can put this item to the vote today and is passed, we will, of course, start counting from the first day of the month when the funding request is passed by LegCo, and we'll ensure that there will be money in next year's budget to give out the allowance. While our timetable is somehow confused, I have to say that B of the paper is to create some manpower, and we must increase NAMs for SWD. And as soon as members approve the paper, the department will start its recruitment. And as soon as approval is granted, we will at once carry out the preparation work so that the scheme can be implemented as soon as possible. Chairman. Secretary, now if the paper is passed this week or next week, how are we going to deal with this? SG. If the money is approved, will it be rolled forward to next year? Can you please explain, SG? The speaker is off mic. Please turn on the microphone. All right, I'll try to speak up. PS. Well, this supplementary paper is just to reflect some facts. In FCR 2012-1354, We have 2 funding requests. Now members are just required to vote on B. For A, because of the time factor, it will no longer be necessary. Technically, we no longer need that supplementary provision to ensure that SWD can launch the scheme in 2012-13. It's just a technical arrangement. Well, you say that it's a technical arrangement, but we have 2 items under this paper, so you just one and not both. We need the approval of the FC in relation to B, item B of FCR 2012-13-54. I get that, but our agenda is to carry on with the discussion of FCR 2012-13-54. There are 2 items under this. Now you only want 1. Is that right? Yes. But the focus of the discussion is the details of the Old Age Living Allowance. There is no change to the scheme. Well, instead of asking for money under 2 items, you only want money for 1. Yes, there is no need to ask for supplementary provision under Head 170 Social Affairs Department. In other words, you are asking for money to increase manpower, and that $2 billion odd dollars, you don't need it anymore. That's right. Well, if the scheme is approved, then in next year's budget, there will be a provision for giving the Old Age Living Allowance. Colleagues, shall we deal with that first? I have got Lee Chuk Yan Lau, Emily Lau, Lee Chuk Yan Leung, Kwok Hong Wong, Kwok Hing, Fernando Zhang. Let's deal with this paper first. So when you speak, please stick to how we are going to deal with this supplementary note from the administration. And the administration is just seeking money under item B to create posts to give out the allowance. And the allowance won't be distributed within this fiscal year, and therefore supplementary provision is not needed. I think it's because they do not want to replay this paper with another. They just want to amend this paper. Mr. Leung, Kwok Hong, 3 minutes each, please. Let's not digress. We will just speak for 4 minutes on this. Chairman, this is a change. You wanted $2.5 billion. For whatever reasons, you are not asking for it, so this has changed the nature of the paper. I'm going to move a motion, an adjournment motion. Why are they so evasive? Because the CY has played foul. He has asked the due bureaus to ask me, well, if he has placed 2 items before this one, will I be in the way? I said, no. Well, don't refute this. I can name the 2 callers who were ladies. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to withdraw those 2 items, and you say that this is a technical amendment. So you won't allow us even to move an adjournment debate on the adjournment motion on this, so that we can discuss other items such as the medical voucher for the elderly. Now, this is a shame. I am very open in filibustering. Well, if you really want to filibuster, there is no need for you to call me. There were 2 callers. One was a professor. Is really a shame. He or she asked me personally, and now you have a change of face. What sort of government are you? Because you're worried about an adjournment motion, you want to do this. Shame on you. All right. I'll ask you whether you have asked somebody to call me to give way. If not, then that 2 callers calling me under a false pretense. I will never answer their calls in the future. Matthew Zhang, I'd like to ask you. You said if I were not filibuster, you would place important livelihood issues in front of OALA. Now, you want me to move an adjournment motion so that you can place those two items? How were you brought up? How were you raised? How can you be so tricky and cunning? Do you want myself and members to be laborers? You want us to serve you so that we move an adjournment debate before elderly persons can have that medical voucher? Are you playing tricks? Well, this administration has no integrity and should be looked on with contempt. Your C is like that. You are like that. He said that on Monday when he comes, we can talk about anything. What sort of trick are you playing? Mr. Lee Chuk Yan. Right, before we talked about this technical issue, I have a political issue to ask. P.S. Well, there are other items on the agenda, and student financial assistance scheme to waive the examination or to improve the examination fee remission scheme, and also the healthcare voucher pilot scheme and supplementary legal aid fund. We could have discussed these three items if the government is willing to give way, and that is to shelve the discussion on OALA first. Yet the government is not willing to give way. Now, to be realistic from a political point of view, well, all right, there is still an item about a salary adjustment for the judiciary. Why don't we discuss those items first? If you're not willing to give way, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong will continue to move motions, and this meeting will continue to drag on and on. This is a reality. We might as well deal with the items following the OALA first. Chairman, I think we should ask the administration to reply. If he is not willing to give way, I think we should terminate or adjourn the discussion of the first paper first so that we can deal with the following papers. And according to the supplementary note, the administration will only ask for funding under B but not A. We're told that if the paper was passed in November, then it would take effect in November. In December, it would take effect in December, so on and so forth. Of course, we object to that. There should always be, we believe, the scheme should take retrospective effect. Now, if the paper is passed in November, then it should take effect on the 1st of November. Now, instead of $3 billion, you've changed that to $2.5 billion. And I'd like to know whether you will only give the allowance, will give a retrospective effect starting from the 1st of March. Now, without A, it's just a new paper. Since this is a new paper, why haven't you submitted a fresh paper to the chairman?
Chairman, this should be in the form of a new paper. Permanent Secretary, I think you should also address the second question. How are you going to do with the billions of dollars asked for? Let me clarify. This is a technical paper. If you approve it today, we'll start to pay the allowance from the 1st of December. And we would be able to do this after March. So if approved, the allowance effective date will be the 1st of December. So the contents of the paper remain the same. Because we cannot spend the money within the current financial year, we'll be able to pay the allowance in April or May. That will be in the next financial year. So A is about a supplementary provision for the current financial year. So we give you this paper for clarification purposes. Permanent Secretary. Well, for FCR 54, we are talking about the new scheme, the actual contents of the Old Age Living Allowance. Those contents will remain the same. They will not be affected by the technical paper, supplementary paper. We needed a supplementary provision if we were to do it within the current financial year, because the SWD got only that much in their budget. But if we start to give the allowance in the next financial year, then there will be no need to get a supplementary provision for 2012, 2013. The money will come from the next financial year's budget, 2013, 2014. I get that, Chairman. But the paper talks about approving B and A. But that's what I want a ruling about. All right, so they have answered your last question. Well, you talk about 3 more items which can be placed in front of this one. There are actually 4. Can you reverse the order? You can make such a request. P.S. Well, we are mindful that there are items queuing up after this item. Having considered the matter carefully, the administration is of the view that we should handle paper 54 as amended first. Understood. Next, Ms. Emily Lau. The Democratic Party will, of course, like every item to be thoroughly discussed and questions thoroughly answered, and then the paper dealt with appropriately. There are different aspirations from different members here, but the government is refusing to budge and is refusing to cooperate with us. Please reflect upon this, because if you are willing to discuss and negotiate with members and take on board some of the suggestions from members, you are going to have an easier path to go. We want you to advance some items, but you said no. And I don't know whether you would deny having made the phone calls to some member. Well, you have to be seen honest. And now you want to take away item B. Well, this is never known before. I was the chairman of the FC previously. If you want to take away A, well, you should have given us a new paper. I hope you will not be breaking the established rules. Civil servants should be objective, neutral, and professional. Please disregard the political wrangling. People respect you because you are considered neutral and objective. Don't be a party to the messing up of rules. Secretary, this is not the right way to amend the paper. Don't you agree? P.S. Well, we'll certainly be neutral, impartial, and professional. This is just what we are supposed to do. But this time, we want to make a simple amendment. We want to delete part of the proposal which is no longer applicable. As I understand it, in the past, well, in the light of the discussion and developing issues, there were the cases where the amendments have been made. But of course, as regards how substantial or how serious the amendments would dictate whether it should be done in the form of a new paper or done orally. We believe this is a simple one. This time, it's a technical change, because in the entire submission, the contents on the OALA remain valid. We are just asking for a technical amendment. Well, you have a lot of time to prepare a new paper, but you chose not to do it. So just table this note? Do you have an ulterior motive here? Well, we just want to get things done. Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Well, for this table supplementary note, it's not as simple as it looks. This simple note reflects the fact that Mr. Leung Kok Hong is filibustering for the 7th time. The original $2.5752 billion would not be needed. Originally, the money should have been given to the elderly recipients. Now it's not needed. So as the Chinese saying goes, even if you are not personally responsible for murdering someone, you are the person who make it possible. And the administration is refusing to change the order of items, and the members' position here are abundantly clear. So if you withdraw the $2.5752 billion provision, it's not fair to us. If we approve the item today, can you promise us that you would keep A for our approval? Because today is the 7th of December. Why do you want to withdraw it so hastily? We still have the FC next week. So it's not fair to us, Chairman. We should not, because Mr. Leung wants to filibuster, ask our elderly recipients to forego $2.5 billion. If this item is approved within December, the funding request should not be withdrawn. Please ask the Secretary to respond. Well, I think they are saying that within the current year they will not be able to pay the allowance. Well, that's what they think. Well, if they want to do it, there's a way they can do it. Well, it's not that we are going to withdraw the money and not paying the money anymore. I hope this will not create any misunderstanding for the elderly. At first, we said we would like to start the scheme in March, but our deliberations have gone nowhere. So our preparation has been affected. We are not able to launch it in March. It doesn't mean that we are not going to launch it in April. If you approve it today, we can launch it in April. That's the next financial year, and that's why we don't need a supplementary provision for this financial year. So it's for a simple technical reason. So the $2.5 billion will be put in the budget of the next financial year. It's just a change of timing. Well, those elderly people who are watching TV might have a wrong idea. That's not the case. Well, why don't you take away the amendment? You should try to get this item approved within this month. Be more positive, and then the Council can also be more positive in tackling Mr. Leung's filibustering. Well, I agree with Mr. Wong in that we should be positive, and I urge members to approve this item today so that we can start the preparation right away. Let's see if we can catch up. Well, the money is not going to be withdrawn. It's just a technical issue of when the money, the allowance is paid. If you approve the item today, it will take effect on the 1st of December. Well, it's just a question of 7 days. There's no reason why you should withdraw the Part A. Dr. Fernando Cheung? I don't know why the administration is so fond of playing tricks. When the OALA was first submitted for consideration, you show little respect for us. You didn't want to follow the procedure. You wanted it passed immediately, and that did not happen. And now we are in a stalemate, and you just want to increase the stakes. You want the other livelihood items to be queued up. Everyone asks you to give priorities to those, and you deliberately doesn't want to do that. So you're trying to put this council on the spotlight. And you are also concerned that we may ask for an adjournment, and therefore you don't give us a new paper, but a supplementary note. So you are playing with petty tricks. When we ask the CEO to come to account for his integrity, he says everything is on the table for the discussion. Please follow the due process. The OALA item is in a stalemate because there are different parties who have different views on this, and they have come up with different proposals. But you have refused to budge even an inch, and you want the other livelihood-related items to be queued up after this one, and we are therefore to blame if those beneficiaries don't get the new benefits. You are trying to aggravate the damage. How can you say you are a responsible administration? These are the underhand tricks. Why should you be doing this? Now you are going to work on the next year's budget to implement something retrospectively. You can do this, but we want you to have the commencement day retrospectively set at 1 of October. You said it's a physical discipline, you can't do it. So we can't ask you to have a retrospective effect of a few months, but you can do this for a whole financial year. Please follow due process. Don't play tricks. Do you have any question? No, not at all. Well, I can only allow one round of speech, because we have to deal with this paper. Dr. Kwok-Kake, I want to make 2 points. Well, the administration has made this very clear. You need the funding approval, and then you can launch it in March. And now you are changing the paper. It can be December, it can be January, and you are not going to launch it in March. As I think members of the public or the potential beneficiaries are being tricked. Well, I agree with Mr. Wong that you are having a double talk. It can be January, April, or March. You're just forcing our hand into accepting a proposal which is not acceptable to us. It's not just the Pan-Democrats. Even the FGU and the DAB members want to have the means test scrapped, or the asset limit should be increased to $300,000 or $500,000. So it's not that only the Pan-Democrats want to have some change. Why have you shown such lack of discipline? It seems to us that you can do it whatever way you want. October, November, December, March, April, whatever months will be okay to you. Why is there such a lack of discipline? Where's your discipline? You're now saying that it can be done anytime you want. Well, we're not playing with tricks. We're just giving you an account of the facts. The FCE paper was submitted on the 26th of October. We said if the approval was approved in October, we would be able to launch it in March because of the lead time for preparation. It's set out in detail in the paper. We need to upgrade the computer, we need to recruit manpower, and we need to get information of the 290,000 elderly recipients and the conversion of the data in the computer system. So the launching day of March was already in the paper. We are not moving the goalposts. We said we should do our utmost to make it possible to launch in March. But still, we are now in a stalemate. We haven't been able to vote on that. So without a green light, and the timetable is affected. The latest assessment is that we are not able to launch it in March. So we need to give this information to you. Of course, if you approve it quickly, we will be able to launch it as quickly as we can, for example, in April. And that will be in the next financial year. It has got nothing to do with a retrospective effect, because we have already said that the scheme will start to take effect on the 1st of the month of that month when the approval was given. We are transparent and we are responsible as well. Mr. James Tin, well, the Secretary is saying that if the approval was given on the 26th of October, it would take effect on the 1st of October. And likewise, if it's approved in November, it will be the 1st of November. Why isn't that if we approve it in December, it cannot take effect on the 1st of December? And likewise, February, the 1st for February, approval in February. The financial year will end on the 31st of March. There's no need for you to take back this part. Why do you have to withdraw this at this point? Well, I will ask them to explain. They're unable to disperse the allowance in March. That's why there's no need to have a supplementary provision. If the approval was given in October, then they will be able to work from October to March, and the money, the allowance will be paid in March. Well, so if you approve the item in December, it will take effect as of the 1st of December, but they will not be able to pay the allowance starting March. Okay, if your understanding is correct, then it will be the beginning will be the launch date will be the 1st of March or 1st of April, and it will be retrospectively implemented. Why is it that something that was feasible in October is now not feasible? Well, we set out in the paper that we expected to launch the scheme in March if the approval was given in October. And now we cannot launch it in in March. So the money will be given in the next financial year. If you launch it in April, you can still pay the allowance for January to March, but the current financial year will be over then. If you approve it today, we can launch it in April. So we'll be paying the allowance for December to March in April. Okay, so you are going to give the allowance effective from the 1st of January, but you are actually doing it in April. Well, I will have to say that I support the Liberal Party supports Mr. Lee Cheuk-Yan's point that the other items should be discussed first. Let's don't get in the way of those other items. Well, I understand this is a technical point. If you cannot start to pay out the allowance in March, because you need to prepare, you will only be able to pay the allowance in April, and that will fall within the next financial year. So for this $2.5 billion asked for, it will be accounted for in the new financial year.
We have to get it endorsed today so that elderly can start receiving the OALA in December or October or December. Do I understand it correctly, Secretary? Yes, you're correct. If it is endorsed today, as soon as we have the green light, we will move at full steam, and we are confident that it will be rolled out in April, and it will be dated back to December this month. And I heard from Dr. Kwok Ka-ki that he criticized what you're doing.
And there are allegations about underhanded tricks or some cheap jab. The DAB will continue to fight to ask for the cap to be raised once it's endorsed. But at this stage, we ask for this to be dealt with. Dr. Kwakaki said we don't agree with this proposal. Don't include us. Don't include the DAB. Let's put it to a vote. Don't play underhanded tricks. You made it out as if we don't want to put it to a vote, but we do want to put it to a vote. 400,000 elderly people are waiting. We want to follow the procedure. And at this stage, we don't want anything to be changed in terms of the agenda order. Mr. Wuchiwai, a few questions first. You are asking for item A to be excluded. For Part A to be excluded, we will only deal with Part B. Is that right? And just now, according to the Secretary, the funding application will be made in April. That's what, and so it will be included in the budget. And if subject to any amendments, and when it comes to implementation, it will be implemented as amended. Secretary, yes, you're right. The PS will supplement. The budget involves passing of the ordinance, the appropriation ordinance by the LegCo. That is an annual exercise. Mr. Wu? So we can't ask for additional amendments on individual items. It has happened before. In special FC meetings, members may make proposals, and the proposals will be discussed. And when the appropriation bill is debated on by the Council, members can move CSAs. I'd like to say that when it comes to the OALA, the amount and when it will be distributed are two separate issues. You have to be very clear. The amount remained unchanged. What we say is that it will be dated back to the month when it's passed. If it is passed in December, then the amount will be dated back to the 1st of December. And this is not changed because of this information paper. Sorry, may I clarify? Just now it was said that the supplementary note is to exclude Part A. We're only here to deal with Part B. How do we go about with the discussion? The amount will be included in the budget, in the next budget. Since the payment will be made next year, and it will be included in the budget next year under the SWD. But it will be included in the entire budget, and it will be a funding approval next year in February. But we are still discussing about the paper, but it's been excluded. But there is Part B. Understand. Mr. Michael Teen, 3 minutes. If it cannot be endorsed in December, January, February, when we will have no idea when it will be passed. So how do you estimate? How do you work out the amount? Well, if, God forbid, no, that is not unlikely. Sorry, I can't help myself. If at the time of the budget we still get the endorsement of the Finance Committee, we cannot and will not set aside the fund for OALA under the SWD. That means that you will have to ask for supplementary appropriation next year. Yes. Yes, that is the case. Sorry. If in April next year we have a decision in the Finance Committee to pass this motion or funding approval, then in May or June next year you will come back to us for another funding approval and we will have to go through the same thing? I think so. Yes, your understanding is right. What? So today we're talking about Part B for the creation of posts. There are other parts in this paper, including, well, actually, it's not just about the monetary amount. But once this is passed, then they know that they have the funding approval, and they can make plans in the budget. Do you understand? So if it is done next year, what we're supposed to do now, they have to come back to us again. So if it cannot be passed before they prepare the information for the budget, they will have to come back. They will have to come to us again, and not just $2 billion, maybe $7 or $8 billion. But if I have confused things, I'm sorry. Well, there are no other members who would like to speak on this issue, Mr. Vincent Fang. It's still something that I don't understand. The $2.575 billion is starting from today to the 31st of March. That is the amount you seek. And from the 1st of April next year to the 31st of March the year afterwards, it will be more than 3 billion. Yes, it may be 6 billion. Part B. But if we cannot pass A, and you ask for increase in manpower to deal with the work of the OALA of the 2.5 billion, and if that is not passed, why are you asking for increase in manpower now? You don't have the funding approval. Why do you need an increase in manpower? Why don't you wait till you get an funding approval of A first? So if B is endorsed, you have the money to recruit people, but there is nothing to do because you don't have the funding approval. P.S. We first need Part B, indicating that you support the OALA. Then the Social Welfare Department can start the recruiting exercise to make preparation for the OALA. We estimated that payment can be made in March, but it seems that the date of payment will have to be pushed back. Still, the SWD will have to make preparation, and they need manpower. So once Part B is passed, SWD will start the recruitment exercise, but the first step is for that to be endorsed by members. About the recruitment of 90 people, how long will these posts last? Representative of the SWD, Director. For the first year is 90 and second year 100 people. Now I was talking about the funding approval for the 90 posts. When do you estimate that they will start working? January or March? Because you're talking about just over $1 million for 90 posts. For how long? So you're talking about this year, right, Director? Next year, that is for 2013-14, if this scheme is to be launched, we will have to have the manpower in place. And before that, we have to embark on advanced work, preparatory work. We will have to start with recruitment. And then we'll have to find contractors, develop programs, send letters to 290 elderly people for the switch. Without the funding approval or the preparatory work, the scheme cannot take place next year. Director, Mr. Fang's question is very simple. You have not recruited the people yet, right? So you are waiting for the funding approval of the FC. Yes. And if the figure is unchanged, then it will be wrong, because the figure appeared there is for recruitments to start in December when it's passed in November. And now you can, even if it is passed today, you can only start your work next month. So you don't need as much. So if we can't give you the funding approval on the by the 31st of March, why do you need the money then? Why don't you ask for it on the 1st of April? Well, in relation to the permanent post for the non-directorate civils, for the non-directorate post in the permanent establishment, we are only talking about the ceiling of the notional annual midpoint salary value. Well, that amount means that if it is passed in October, so if it is passed in March, how much do you need? You won't need as much as this, because this is the figure in October. In November there will be a different figure. December, January, February there will be a different figure for each month. I know this is a new question. Perhaps we can ask the director to answer. P.S. We're not talking about the amount needed for the creation of a post. We're talking about the establishment ceiling. We need to set the ceiling for the creation of a post. Without the ceiling, even if the SWD would like to recruit 90 people, it cannot be done. So the ceiling will have to be relaxed. And as to when people will be recruited, when the money is spent, is a different matter. We need the approval of the FC to increase the ceiling. I think your question has been answered. What I was talking about is that if it is 1 month later, then the figure should be reduced. No, this is the ceiling, not the actual spending. And it is only a midpoint value. Miss Priscilla Leung. One question and an observation. First, the question. What if we delay it further? Now it is $2 billion, and later you mentioned about $8 billion. I don't really understand how you work that out. Maybe the administration needs to explain. And my observation. We get bogged down with the details, and it doesn't help at all. It's just like a story I learned when I was a child. Two ladies fought for a child, claiming that they are the mother. And today, both the public and legislators claim to be doing something for the elderly. And we're at loggerheads. I would like to say to Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, we have to respect the system, the procedure. We just put that to a vote. We are all doing it for the good of the elderly. Put it to a vote. Let us vote. We deal with all the amendments. The society is getting impatient. Everyone's saying that they are doing there's the best for the elderly. I think this is hurting society. We have to deal with all the amendments as soon as possible. Put it to a vote. Whatever the result, we will proceed from then on. That's my comment. A question was raised. Who is to take it? Ms. Leung didn't understand about the $8 billion. For the $8 billion, for the first year, the expenditure will be $6.2 billion for this financial year if it is passed today. And there will be December, the entire month, January, February, March, and in April, and it will be about 500,000. So 2 billion plus 6.2 billion equals to $8 billion. Do I still have 15 seconds? Well, I hope that there won't be any more amendments. Put it to a vote. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan. I'd like to follow up on the question of Mr. Fang. Part B is for recruitment, to do the preparatory work. If A is not going to be endorsed at all, why do you need so many people now? Who's to take this question? PS. First, we need the FC to endorse the proposal. That means the OALA can proceed. And the next step, well, that means we will seek your approval to get funding for increase in manpower, and the SWD will not move until they get that. So you're just putting it on hold. We have not have the approval yet, but you put A on hold. You're only asking for B. So if we approve B, that means you're going to start recruitment. What if A is never going to be passed and you have people recruited? That would be a waste. We don't need A yet, because the time when payment is made cannot be done in this financial year. The earliest is next April. We asked for A previously because we thought payment could be made in the financial year 2012-13. And since it's too late, the supplementary appropriation is meaningless because it can only happen next year. P.S. Could you maybe organize yourself before you speak? It's everywhere. You're everywhere. May I? Secretary. B. If you refer to 2012-13 paper number 54, it is about the increase in the ceiling. Because without the ceiling, you cannot recruit. We need the approval of the FC. Part A is the OALA. It is asking for funding approval. The scheme is there. The whole paper remains unchanged apart from just a few words. Now it cannot start in March. It has to start in April. So the amount of money will not be used in this financial year. The bill will be paid in the next financial year. Don't be misled that they are two separate things. It's just that we don't need money for this year for A, but we still need money for B to do the preparatory work.
Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, you've already spoken your turn, so please do not speak among yourselves. Mr. Wong Kwok Kin. Well, perhaps we have not put our questions clearly, and so the answers are very muddled. The longer I listen to this debate, the more muddled I got. So, the whole paper, the point of the paper is to pass the Old Age Living Allowance. The money is expected to be paid within this fiscal year, and therefore a supplementary provision of $2.5 billion is needed. And then B is to increase the NAM's ceiling to employ people to carry out the scheme, because it's expected that the scheme or the money will only be paid out next year, next fiscal year, and therefore aid is needed. However, they have to employ people to do the work first. So if this paper is passed, that is tantamount to approving the OALA. So there must be money to recruit people. That's my understanding. I don't know whether it's correct or not, Secretary, but listening to the answers and replies, they're all muddled and very confusing. In fact, it's very simple. Well, there's not really withdrawing that $2.5 billion. They're just shelving it for the time being and wait until the next fiscal year. Mr. Wong, you are completely correct. Well, I was muddled by the whole debate. Originally, I get it, I got it, but the more I listened to it, the more muddled I got. All right, any other members? Now I have to decide. Sorry, I said there will only be one round. I said twice. I asked you to manage your time properly so that you can ask your questions. And because after you have commented on this supplementary note, we have to then act. It's not an easy decision for me, members, because it was only at 4:02 that I got this paper from the administration. Before that, my understanding was, from the administration was, there will not be any major change, any major amendment. Is that the correct meaning? There won't be any major or substantive amendment. So the supplementary note only arrived at 4:02. So I saw the paper, I heard remarks from members as well as the administration. Before I announce my ruling, perhaps I will comment on the procedure as I understand it. If it is a supplementary note, then we can continue to deliberate on Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's motions. We have 113 and 189 motions have just arrived. Assuming that I approve the new, I allowed the freshly submitted motions, there will be 3,000 odd motions to deal with. Now, if, as I understand it, the paper contains a major and substantive amendment, that means it is a new paper. If it is a new paper, then the administration will have to withdraw FCR 2012-1354 first, and will treat this paper as a new paper. And if it is regarded as a new paper, and if the administration would like to continue to discuss that paper, I will have to give the administration a waiver, because the paper only arrived at 4:02, and we have to allow the paper to be discussed at short notice. And because of that, the remaining motions will have to be dealt with. Again, I must open the discussion. So last week's 5 minute, 3 minute, 1 minute speaking time per turn will have to be revived again. We have to repeat it again. So this is a very difficult decision for me. I've heard the request from many members that they would like me to expedite matters so that we can let the elderly have the money sooner. So this is a difficult decision for me. Since A is not here, I believe that this is a fresh paper my ruling is that A is a fresh paper. Without A, it is a fresh paper. So, administration, would you like to continue to discuss this new paper? If yes, you have to withdraw the previous paper, and I have to give you a waiver. Shall I give you some time to consider your way forward, or allow us some time? Allow me to say this. From the administration's point of view, we do not believe that the amendment is critical or very significant, because the details of the OA, LA is just the same. Yes, I heard what you said. I think you also heard what I said. My ruling is that since you have removed $2.5 billion from your funding request, I believe this is a significant amendment to your original paper. So I'll give you some time to discuss. We'll take a break of 15 minutes, and let's come back at 5.